Hi guys, it's Li Hui. Welcome back. Today's topic is a little bit special because I'm a little bit shy to talk about it. Okay, today let's talk about crybaby. Are you a crybaby? Or in Chinese we call it 哭包. Are you a 哭包? Okay, so I was one. I'm not shy to admit that I was a crybaby once, and I think I might still be one too. I'm a little bit embarrassed right now actually. So first of all, we all cry. The first thing we do when we arrive to this world is to cry. The reason that baby cries is that when a baby is delivered, they must start breathing on their own. The first cry is usually what that helps a baby's lung to adapt to the life in the outside world. And crying also helps baby to clear out any extra fluid in the lungs, nose, and mouth. And the tears helps us to see better. It moistens our eyes, clear out the debris in our eyes, allow light to enter so we can see better. So you can see that to survive, the first step is to cry. And it's normal for infants to cry. It's like a way to communicate, to tell their parents that they are hungry, sick, uncomfortable, or even in pain. But sometimes infants cry because they need affection. And when you grow a little bit older, you become a toddler or a preschool kid or a school-age children. Oftentimes, when you are angry or frustrated or you are having a tantrum, you cry. Okay? Or you are just upset because your friends wouldn't want to play with you, you cry again. And of course, when you are in pain, you cry. You can see that accept the fact that you cry because you hurt yourself when you are playing. Oftentimes, we cry because of overwhelming emotions, and this leads to emotional tears. Okay, before I move on to share with you all some of the facts of emotional tears and why crying might be good for us, let me just share with you a story of my childhood. So I just mentioned that I was a crybaby, right? Okay, when I was a toddler, I cried a lot, like a lot. When I went to the kindergarten school, I cried every morning. Like waking up is okay, breakfast is okay, but after I showered, when my mom brought out the school uniform, oh my god, my tears started to trickle down my cheek, and there it goes. Okay, I cried and cried and cried and cried. So I cried a lot. Until now, I still can't figure out why I cried that much when I was so young. Probably because the insecurity I felt back then is like leaving my own comfy house and go to the school seems so hard for me. It's like I felt more comfortable staying at home, and school seemed like a scary thing to me. Unfamiliar teachers, friends that might not want to play with me, little rules that hidden beneath everything. Anyway, I was so scared of school, and every morning I cried. Oh my god, I even cried during the school's performances or award ceremonies. It sounds silly, right? But that's what I did back then. Crying seemed like a routine job to me. And fast forward to my high school time, I cried again because I could not decide to continue my study at my high school or go to A-levels. Can you believe that? I was 17 and I cried in front of all my friends and my teacher. I mean, it's so embarrassing right now if I think backwards, but I think that one of my weaknesses is that I get attached so easily, and I cried a lot. Some of our listeners might have realized that I cried because of the insecurity, the frustration, the unfamiliarity that I felt when I was a kid. So when we grow older, we seldom cry because we fall down and hurt our knees, unless the pain is unbearable. Oftentimes, I think we cry because of the overwhelming emotions we feel. Okay, disclaimer first. I'm not a healthcare professional or a board certified physician, so the information below that I'm going to share with you is just information that I found and I've done my research, and they are not medical advice from me. I just want to share the knowledge with you so you can also share them with your friends. And you can also share your opinions with me by leaving a comment below, and I will make sure to check them out. Okay? So, first of all, why is crying good for us? And why do we cry because of emotions instead of falling down when we grow older? So, crying is actually a way to release the stress. So, crying oftentimes get associated with negative stereotypes, right? Like if boys cry, it's considered as a feminine act. It's considered as an act to show weakness. And in some cultural contexts, unfortunately, crying is considered as an undesirable behavior because it implies the person who is crying as a fragile, emotionally unstable person. But it's actually not true. Crying can be a way to release stress. Emotional tears are different from the tears you have when you hurt your knees. Emotional tears actually contain stress hormones, and by crying, the toxins are flushed out of our system. And also, crying releases oxytocin and endorphins. So oxytocin is widely known as the trust hormone or love hormone. It gets released the most when you are with someone you trust, like your friends, your family, or when you're being loved by your boyfriend or girlfriend. And endorphins work similarly to opioids. It releases pain, produce a feeling of euphoria. So crying releases these feel-good hormones. Therefore, crying will make you feel better. I think that when we are stressed out, it's better to cry to release this built-up stress or emotion we get from study, work, or relationships, than turning to something darker like drug or alcohol abuse, violence, or sometimes even self-harming. So we can all agree that crying has this self-soothing effect. Not only that it can release stress, we tend to regulate our emotions, calm ourselves down, and loosen up a little after we cry. So you can see that crying is good. You should cry if you feel the need to cry. But of course, crying depends on social context and setting as well. It's okay to cry beside your friends because you are showing your vulnerable side to a person you trust. However, crying in a workplace or in front of a boss is generally seen as a negative action. And if you are a therapist or a medical professional like doctor or nurse, I think that you should not cry in front of a patient. You need to show your professionalism by staying as calm as possible when you're listening to their story or the victim's story. If you start to tear up, you might make them feel burdened and less comfortable in sharing their story with you. And of course, next thing, apart from stress release, crying also has this empathic connection. On another level, crying can actually relate to deep empathy and mutual connection. Have you ever watched a movie where the characters suffer from unfortunate events or traumas and you cry a lot, right? Every time when I watch this kind of movies or dramas, I cry until my eyes are puffy and swollen and my cheeks are red as hell. Like the movie Inseparable Bros, I've just watched. And yeah, that movie certainly has made me cry like hell. And actually, I did a movie review, Movie 101 on that movie. And if you have not checked out the episode, please make sure to listen to that episode as well. Okay? So, in this case, when you're watching movies or dramas that make you cry, make you sad, crying is often seen as a positive sign because it reveals the underlying humanity in us and shows a willingness to be vulnerable to others. Therefore, crying can also elicit empathy or sometimes elicit altruism from others. But what should you do? What should you do when someone cries? The answer is simple. Be quiet. If you rush in to calm the person who is crying, they might feel weak embarrassed, or even guilty for making you to witness their crying. I don't think that you should cheer them up as soon as they cry, because the only thing that they need you to do is to acknowledge that it's okay for them to cry, and no matter what they feel, it's okay also. And you should give them a moment or so, a moment of silence, then ask them if they would like a tissue or not. And of course, I don't think that we should judge people based on their crying, because emotions are basically chemical and hormonal response to stimuli, and there's nothing bad about crying actually. So stop telling boys or men that crying makes them look like a girl or makes them weak. It's okay to cry, nothing wrong, nothing bad about it. Just cry if you want to cry. So that's pretty much I want to share with our listeners. And of course, I did research on articles on some major websites like Psychology Today, Medical News Today, Healthline, and I add some of my personal opinions to these articles. If there are any misinformation here, please let me know by leaving a comment below. Okay? Now we are still in this global pandemic and we are still haunted by this COVID virus. Some of you might have lost your loved ones and you are grieving for them right now. Some of you might have lost your job and you are struggling to survive, to put food on the table, financially or mentally. Some of you might have just stressed out because you can't get to see your family who are at the other side of the planet because of the lockdowns and quarantines, and you miss them so much. So guys, it's okay to cry if you want to. It's not guilty to cry, and crying doesn't make you a weak person. It only makes you a healthier person. We need to feel bad first before we are able to feel good. And we need to experience sadness first if we want to know how does happiness feel like. Oh yeah, before I end this episode, I want to wish someone happy birthday. It's me. I want to wish myself happy birthday. The reason I make this episode and name it Crybaby is because I was a crybaby, and certainly it has caused my parents to worry a lot back then because of my constant crying. But anyway, I want to say thank you to my parents, siblings, and my friends who always put up with my crying and did not hate me because of my crying. And last thing, happy birthday to myself. Okay, so today's song recommendation is Running Through the Night by Sorry, and I hope you enjoy it. I will see you at our next episode. Okay, goodbye.